Hello, and welcome to this episode of Build by Humans, where we talk about the human side of things, what it takes to build great products outside of the right tool, the right technology, and the latest and greatest thing that somebody might be talking about today. Today, we're talking to Cody. I'm going to turn it over to you. Introduce yourself, tell us a bit about you, and we'll jump in.
Cool. Thanks for having me. So my name's Cody Rogers. I have the privilege of leading the product team at Hubstaff. I've been there about 7 years, and we build software for global teams, mainly around time and productivity tracking, and then things like workforce management, understanding when they're working, what they're working on, getting them paid, all kinds of stuff like that.
Cool. So you've been there for about 7 years. So that puts us before COVID.
Uh-huh.
Which I would say you've seen the transition of understanding, transition of acceptance of remote work.
hmm
I talk a lot about remote work because I run a 100% remote company. So the company I run is called Mirigos. We're a team augmentation services company. We help our clients hire people, and we're 100% remote. When I say we're 100% remote, so we have our internal people, right, that run the company, and we've got people that work for clients. Well, everybody's remote. So everybody who works for clients is remote, and everybody who works for Mirigos running the company is remote. And we've
hmm
been remote since day one. And our day one was 2014, so way before COVID. We do not have an office. We do not have central location. We are all in different countries, different continents. It's remote. That's all it is. So I'm curious, what's your take on the transition on how things changed before COVID, and now after COVID?
Yeah, it's a good question. Now, Hubstaff is similar too. I've been here 7 years. We started about 12 or 13 years ago, so well before COVID. And same thing for us, fully remote since day one, never had an office or headquarters anywhere. And what's interesting is, yes, COVID sort of taught the world they can work from anywhere. They
Mhm.
can hire remotely all over the globe, which is great. And we've seen a bump, in customers since that. But actually, the bigger trend is understanding that you can hire contractors globally. And so, specifically, not having to hire full time people, but just being able to quickly ramp up contractors when you need them. So, instead of spending the time and money to hire full time people, especially locally, which is very expensive, if you need developers, great. There's really talented people in Spain or Poland or pretty much anywhere that you can find, and our tool helps people, find and hire and get working with them.
That's awesome. Yeah, I actually think there are few factors that COVID helped us as a humanity
Mm,
together, right? So everybody accepted remote as part of norm, right? It's okay, right? That's fine. I
yeah.
always use this example. My wife she's completely not in IT, different medical field.
Mhm.
Works for a very large corporate company where nobody could ever work remotely. Like if you wanted to work remotely, you couldn't, like even for one day, right? That just wasn't allowed. And you have to dress up to work, even though they never see people, right? It's not customer facing, but just very business type of. Well, COVID came, all went home, and guess what? Nobody ever came back. Everybody's remote, and they love it. And the company says it works better, so everybody loves it. So that's the obvious one. The non-obvious one that I see, and I love that, is yes, it's easier to hire, it's easier to fire, because you can do when you get contractors remotely, you have a lot more control.
Mhm.
It gives you access to talent that is not local.
Mhm. This is
I'm in
huge.
LA.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have to hire in your, like, fine. You're in Silicon Valley, you have a lot of talent. You're in LA, you have enough talent. But if
Mhm.
you're in some place where that may not be the case, I was talking to a company yesterday. They're in Cape, in Florida, where they launched the shuttle, and I was like,
Good
how
point.
and they're all local. I'm like, Cape Canaveral, yeah. Like, how do you hire people? Where do you get people? They're,
Yeah.
they're all local, 100%
Yeah.
local. And um, and the last one, we opened access to highly paid jobs for people in other places
Mhm.
in the
Which
world,
is awesome.
which is, I think, the best thing.
Awesome.
Somebody living in Poland, somebody living in Argentina, somebody living in Philippines, whatever the country might be, they're not limited by a local market. They can be a great engineer and work for any company here in the U.S. and be as productive. So that's my big thing, and I love it.
Yep. Yeah, and that's always one of the best things when people ask me what it is I like about Hubstaff. The first one is, will forever be I get to work at home and see my family whenever I want. But the second one is like I get to work with really talented people all over the world. And like you said, yes, they're very smart, but they're also like very unique, which just brings a cool kind of atmosphere and culture to the
Hmm.
company. On my team alone, I have people in Canada, Poland, Romania, Brazil, Uruguay, like all over.
Right.
And
Yep.
yeah, and we get to work together. And yeah, we only get to hang out in person, maybe once or twice a year, but it's still pretty fun.
But you still get to know them. You still have this personal relationship that it's granted it's different, right? You don't have lunch every day or once a week,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah, and you have to be intentional to do those things. Like even
absolutely.
if it's not in person, we do like a hangout. We have like a happy hour. We'll do like we play hot seat when any new team members join. Like it, you have to be pretty intentional about building culture when you're remote, because you don't have those like hallway run-ins. There's no water cooler or lunchtime to hang out and chat.
WeChat. We use one of the chat. We use WhatsApp, but it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
easier because it just works better. But we just chat, right? And we talk and we joke and we talk about things that are happening. And somebody gets frustrated, they'll go and it may not even nothing to do with work. It's just like, oh my god, this person just did this. I can't believe this. And that's how you get to know people. That's how you build
yep,
that. And then you jump on the call, and now there's continuity, right? It's not just once a week, 1 hour conversation or whatever it might
yeah.
be. Yeah.
That was a tough lesson I think we learned a couple years ago, which was having teams have autonomy and build trust together. And so
Hmm.
that when they go through challenges, which inevitably they're going to, they understand, like they know each other, they trust each other, they know that they're on the same team and they share that goal together. And so yeah, one of the things that we do, like messaging wise, is just we use Slack, and we have these personal channels to share adventures and personal updates. And tonight I'll go out trick or treating with my kids and probably share a goofy photo of all dressed up. So yeah, we get to, even though it's still online, we get to share that stuff together.
Exactly, exactly. We're actually, I'm finishing an article that we're going to publish, which talks about another aspect of differences, right? People are different, people are unique, different cultures. Here in the US, and this came up over the last few months a lot in conversations. I mean, everybody talks about it. It just somehow came up. So I'm finishing an article on that. Um, People talk like young people here in the US don't want to work, right? The culture of like they get out of college and they expect everything, just the whole bad thing. Well, it's true. I have an 18-year-old son. I can testify it is true, but it's not true all over the world. There's still places where that culture is not in place. People get stuff done,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's very valuable. It's very very helpful.
I'm sure it's one of those things that's like you can find people on both sides. And we don't like I don't know if we have any 18-year-olds, but we have some young people.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you, and this is probably part of our just hiring process, but like we have people that grind, like they work hard. And it doesn't matter if you're 20 or you're 45. Like we're looking for A players that work hard, and you can find them. It might be harder depending on where you look or who you're talking to, but they're everywhere.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. So one thing that I want to ask you, and this is, I sort of know what software the business that you guys in, and a lot of it has to do with enabling remote teams
Hmm.
or enabling the tracking and productivity in remote teams. And that to me comes a bit of a cultural difference or cultural possibly misunderstanding. I'm talking about teams that work for me, right, inside Mirigos, right? So I got to
Yep.
differentiate that. I don't track them, right? How do you track your team? I don't, right? That's the answer. They understand what needs to be done. They understand their goals. They understand their timelines, and we agree to that, and they get it done.
Hmm.
I don't care if they work an hour a day or 10 hours a day. I don't care. Like, if they work 10 hours a day regularly, I would hope they tell me that there's something wrong and we have to fix it.
Hmm.
But if somebody needs to take, half a day off because they just don't want to work, right? They're just tired.
Hmm.
I just don't care. At the same time, yeah, we're all hooked on our messaging, right? So if somebody texts, we expect a response. It doesn't have to be that second, but we expect a response. Like, so if somebody's not, I'm not working today, respond and say I'm not working today. Don't just ignore
Yep.
it. There's some software and some cases and some companies that manage things very, very, very actively. How many hours? What time do you show up? How many hours do you sit? Like whatever it is. How do you feel about
Yeah, so it's a good question. There's a lot to it. One of the things that we've tried for years is to make it clear there's sort of this brand perception of, as soon as people hear, oh, your software can take screenshots, like, oh, your big brother spyware, like, I don't want any part of it. It's an easy like assumption to make, and we understand why people would feel that way. It's one of the 15 sort of features and values that Hubstaff offers, right? So understanding where your team spends time is incredibly valuable, not just for you internally, but also if you're working for clients and understanding how much
it?
billable
Yes.
time people are spending, how much you're, billing clients. And then even if clients want to have visibility into some of the work that's being done by your team, right? The other thing is like not everybody is hiring, like I'm sure your process and a lot of people like you have a very thorough process for hiring very high skilled, probably high paid
Yes.
individuals working. Not every, like it's a very wide spectrum between
True.
skill, job, pay rate, right? And so hiring globally, because not everybody can afford that super in-depth process or be locally to like get to meet people and know them. There is this sort of unknown about like I'm taking a risk on hiring this person and having them do work for my client. So like
Mhm.
shouldn't I as the business owner spending money have some way to know that you're not taking advantage of me? And
Right.
so sometimes it is things like let me see where people are spending time and collect data or turn on screenshots so I can see the project that you're working on throughout the day. A lot of these are hourly workers, and so they want to be able to check in and see what they're doing. But again, it's all like it's really based on the culture of your company. And if it's something that's good for you, your culture, your clients, great, we have it. And then if not, okay, turn it off and use the other 10 things that we have in
Right.
there. Yeah.
And I 100% agree with you, right? So I will 100% support that. Not everybody. We hire engineers, right? We hire,
Mhm.
as you're absolutely right, highly paid engineers or product development people, right?
Mhm.
Engineers, data, whatever it is. It's different than if you're hiring data entry, virtual assistants, or people like that. In our world, I understand that somebody who is running marketing for my team may not feel like writing today, right? It's not that you have to write this many words per day. It's I'm just not able to, right? And it happens with me, right? I got to do this. Like it's just not working. I'll do this tomorrow. I'll do this
Sure.
day after. And it's very different than if I have somebody who needs to make 50 phone calls per hour, right? And it's like you got to make 50. If you're not making 50 calls per hour, why are you here? So
Yep.
absolutely agree with that. I just want to make sure that, like, one thing that we tell clients and people that work for us, we want to make sure we track and measure what matters.
Mhm.
Because this is another thing I just published on Monday. People will give you what you measure. If you tell them I'm going to measure how many phone calls you make, they're going to make that many phone calls. Good calls, bad calls, that's different. Unfortunately, I have a story, and it's a bad story. I I'll make it very short. I was offered a job by a company, and then before taking the job, I met with some people there and the CTO that was leaving, and I was supposed to come in and replace him. And so they sort of, I met with them after having an offer while thinking if I should take it or not.
Mhm.
And what I learned, that CEO of the company, it's a tech company, right? Technology. He would get weekly data of when people pulled in and out of the garage in the building. And what people did, they knew this. It wasn't a secret. So, like, yeah, we pulled in and out all the time, like on time. What we did was we pulled in and pulled out. That's different.
Yeah.
So, you're gonna get what you measure, and so that's my big thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely I agree with you. And there's, to be honest, there's a lot of different use cases. We have a lot of customers who they hire overseas, they have virtual assistants, they do client work. We also have customers that are US based companies with full-time employees, and they run tracking in the background just to collect data. And so you can turn it off. So like
Mhm.
I can't even see your individual data, but like at a team or a department level, I can see this is an engineering team and I can see they're spending 62% of their time in communication, whether that's
Okay.
Slack or Teams or whatever,
Right.
right? Like, is that where we should be spending time? Like, shouldn't this team be writing more code maybe? And so like we try to aggregate some of that level up a bit so that like if you're concerned about privacy, great, hide that stuff, go up one level. And then as a department manager, see if you're in too many meetings, see if your teams are spending time in the right places. So there's a lot of places you can use it that are not like micromanagement, unhealthy, too hands-on. And we try to, educate customers about here's a really healthy way to take the data that we collect and look at it. And also, like you said, don't forget about the output. Like they're doing work,
Right.
they're making calls, they're closing deals, they're closing tickets, they're writing code, whatever it is. Look at that too. Like we're not saying replace that, but like in tandem with that stuff, and look at it together. It's a whole picture. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, and we give you just here's more data points.
Another thing I want to ask you, very few people that I talk to have team members on different regions, right? So a lot of people have remote people, but
Mhm.
yeah, we have everybody in Latin America, we have everybody in Europe, we have everybody in Asia, we have everybody in US, whatever it is. You mentioned you have Poland, Europe, you have Latin America, like you mentioned Uruguay and a few others. Do you find that there is a cultural difference in how people work, communicate, and expectations that they have from you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. The expectations we try to make clear just as part of like, management, every team lead and manager tries to make that clear. The communication is probably I kind of laugh because it's a funny one and we talk about it internally. We have a handful of people that are Eastern European, a few guys a few people from Belarus and then Romania, kind of all over. And there's a much more like bold, straightforward way of communication. And even when you respond to them, they don't want you fluffing through, like, just give it to me straight is how they want to be,
Exactly.
which I love. And like some people they're like a little taken back, like, oh, okay. And then like when they realize they're like, it's actually really nice to talk this way. Like we're very straightforward and we say what we think. And so, that's one that I've seen is like, it's definitely different than, what I've worked with in the past. But in general, yeah, it's not a problem. You have to sort of, understand some of the differences. The Hubstaff team in general is all spread out, and you kind of figure out like the time zone things and the culture things, and it's also just fun. Like when we end our all hands meeting, we do one every month now, and when we end it, everybody says goodbye in their like native language. And so just like kind of fun stuff like that you get to experience together.
Yeah, it's when I set expectations, right? It's not so much what you expect of them as what they expect from you. I remember
Mm.
I was running an engineering team for a large company, and we built a team. Or I was running it locally, and we expanded the team in Ukraine. And I remember the first few times, Monday morning there's the meeting, and everybody's, "Hey, how are you? How was your weekend?" And because people know each other, right? We know spouses, we know kids, or at least we
Mhm.
know of them and names and stuff. So, and the first few times, the Ukrainian guys were like, "Why are we wasting this time? Why are we talking about stuff that's not important? I'm in the meeting. I'm here to talk work."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that was just hilarious. And I get it. I'm actually originally from Ukraine. I was born there.
Okay.
So I get that, but I've lived in US for 35 years. So I've,
Yeah,
adopted.
yeah. That is
Um,
funny. Okay. Yeah, we have some of that too. It's good.
yeah, I know, I'm sure. But one thing I do see, there's a difference in how people communicate and what they expect. Like, for example, you're right, Eastern European guys are very direct. You tell them, hey, this is what we need to do. They'll turn around and go, nope, not going to work. Where Latin American guys are more like, okay, let's see this, right? We'll try this. And they may come back and also say it didn't work, but it's just not as direct. It's more
Yeah,
polished, if you will. So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, cool. Do you guys work like, do you have teams in Asia? I'm just asking for time difference, like how that's working out.
Yeah, we don't go generally past sort of Eastern Europe just because the
Hmm.
time zones get to be pretty difficult. So I'm actually the furthest west in Oregon, and we have maybe two or three other people in my time zone, and then everybody else is ahead of me. So my mornings are busy, and then afternoon everybody's gone,
Yeah.
which is kind of nice. But yeah, we have a lot on this side of the Atlantic, and then a good amount in Europe too, and they're
Hmm.
in Poland, Spain, Portugal, Romania,
Right.
kind of spread out, but it's still pretty
But
much all over.
I find Latin America obviously easier, right? Because you have the most 4 hours
Yeah.
with Pacific. I'm in Los Angeles, right? So we're,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
in the same time zone. So you got 4 hours. That's like It's no
Nothing.
brainer.
Yeah.
But even with Eastern Europe, you've got 9 most of the Europe. Some places it's 10. It's still very, very manageable because and the Europeans like to work later.
They
So
do, yeah.
that's
It's not even
yeah.
really an issue, and we make that's another expectation thing that you mentioned. It's like we just tell them, "Hey, we have people, a lot of people in Eastern time zone. Can you make sure you at least overlap this much, right?" And they're like, most of the time, sure, happy to.
When I ran my team, what we did to make it work was actually and it worked for everybody. Everybody loved it. They would
Mm,
show up in the office pretty late, right? Because nobody cares. This is years ago, so we still had an office and everything.
mm,
Like nobody cares if they just show up at 9 or even 10 because we're asleep, right? No, like literally nobody cares. So they would show up pretty late, work till about 5, 6. Then they would leave, go home, have dinner, go out, do whatever they wanted to do. And by 9, 10 local time, they'll join back from home and stay in for a few hours. And so we never felt they're out of touch. We're like, oh, they're just out of lunch, right? They're gone for a couple of hours and then they'll be back. And
mm,
that worked really well. And they loved it because that gave them flexibility of spending time with family and doing
yeah.
their own stuff without feeling so cool. No, interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah, and I don't do Asia for the same reason. Time difference just doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. How far east is your team?
Well, so my team, our internal team, is
Yeah.
now Eastern Europe, right? It's all. Actually, no, I have somebody in Azerbaijan, so that's 11 hours.
Okay.
But she works nights. She doesn't sleep
Okay.
by her own choosing. Well, not
Yeah. Yeah.
hasn't. Don't blame me. Her own choosing. So she's up. But yeah, it's Europe, Eastern Europe. We had a lot of people in Ukraine because of the war. They all moved, so they're all over Europe,
Yeah.
Spain, Poland, etc. But yeah, it works really well for us.
Yeah. And do you guys ever meet in person?
Yeah, so we do. I travel to meet with them. I was just in Latvia at a conference doing presentations there, just speaking. So the lady from Azerbaijan, we flew her over. So this was the first time I met her. But we spent 3 days together, and it was great. It was very productive.
Mm,
Again, we worked together for over a year. So we know each other pretty well, right? We have pretty good relationship. We're a very small team, right? So
yeah.
it helps. But this was very useful. Spend 3 days together, going for dinners, lunch, and doing stuff. And now we're friends. So
Yeah, that's good. We do a once a year we do an in-person retreat, and we try and switch on, sometimes we'll do this side of the Atlantic and then we'll go over to Europe. But this past year we did Costa Rica, and we try to get as many people there as we can, but it's just fun to hang out in person. And everybody
yeah,
everybody leaves there with like just an excitement and just new level of like, I don't know, the culture just like takes 2 steps forward every time we do that.
we don't do big gatherings where
Okay.
everybody gets together because we've tried and it for us it was sort of superficial, right? Because people it becomes odd. So we do very small, like I'll fly, right, and I'll spend time with somebody, 1, 2, 3 people, and
Mm,
do it together and separately, and then I'll go somewhere else and do the same thing.
yeah.
And they'll meet sometimes. And so yeah, I mean everybody knows each other, everybody has seen each other personally, obviously, but not necessarily. We don't need this big get together with presentations and meetings, where larger companies do. We
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah, which we're not like large. I think we have 130 or so, but that's a little bit more our style. It's like we get as many people there as we can. And then
Yeah.
everybody breaks up and like I hang out with my whole department and we spend time together and have meals and but we do a few other presentations too and talk about here's the plan for next year and all that stuff.
We're way smaller. We're under 10 people. I'm talking about internal operations,
Hmm.
right? This is the internal operations. We're under 10 people, so we're still where everybody talks to each other every week. Everybody knows each other. At 130, you need a controlled environment to do that.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot.
All right, Cody. Well, thank you so much. This is very interesting. It's a great
Yeah.
conversation.
It was good to talk. Thanks for having me
All right.
join.
Absolutely. Thank you.